FM. Lucky Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today, making me just a small part of your day. You know that I appreciate each and every one of you. We have a lot to get into, a lot of college football stuff. We are coming up on college football. 'Tis the season. This is like my Christmas. This is actually better than my Christmas because it's free gifts. It's just you don't have to pay anything. Just broadcast television decides to just transmit presents into your house every week for an entire season. How awesome is that? That's pretty cool to me. So now you got Nick Saban being called out by an anonymous coach. We don't know who this person is. They simply spoke anonymously, and this person said that Nick Saban was overrated, which I think does that not seem to be a bit too far and excessive? Here's the quote from the coach specifically. He said, if you had the #1 recruiting class in the country every year, you'd win like Nick Saban. He shows up at every single game with a better roster than the teams he's playing. If you count cheating and getting the best players in the country as part of running a program, he's the best in the country. It's like saying an NFL coach is the best coach in the league if he gets 25 first-round picks every year, which I should point out that the Cleveland Browns have been getting more first-round picks than anyone in the last several years, and they are, in fact, still the Browns. But look, yes, is Alabama cheating? Probably. I mean, look, all of these big-time college football programs, there is some degree of cheating going on. There are bodies buried somewhere in terms of money going to certain players, and they shouldn't have it, extra benefits that they shouldn't have. You can get away with this stuff. But does that make Nick Saban overrated? Is he honestly overrated? He keeps his nose clean. He wins with the talent he has, and he doesn't get caught. He keeps his nose clean. Nick Saban is not going to be caught in the same kind of thing that Urban Meyer's caught in. He's not caught in the same kinds of stuff that DJ Durkin is caught in over at Maryland, where there's a player who died of heat stroke and because of negligence. He's not caught in any of that stuff. He's not caught in any of the stuff that Hugh Freeze was caught in or Rick Pitino. I mean, the list goes on and on of very talented coaches with great recruiting classes, big-time programs, and yet Nick Saban doesn't seem to be caught up in any of that stuff. He must be doing something right. He wins with the talent he has. You can't blame a guy for having talented players and winning. You blame a guy for having talented players and losing, because that means you found a way to lose. But at the end of the day, these guys, for whatever reason, whether or not Nick Saban has been able to convince Nick Saban's got to win with what he's got. There's nothing overrated about winning with the talent that you have. And the biggest thing here is that if you are of the mindset of this coach and you think that Nick Saban is cheating, and I am sort of the mindset of this coach, which is that not only do I think Nick Saban is cheating, but I think that Ohio State cheats and Texas cheats, and I'm a Texas fan, and Miami cheats. Look, I think all of these programs have some level of cheating involved because boosters want to win. These programs are just going to have a degree of that we're never going to see the end of. But if you are of the mindset that Nick Saban is cheating, then the #1 rule of cheating, and I believe that USC and Texas and Miami and Ohio State and Michigan, they're all doing it. If you're going to cheat, don't get caught. And Nick Saban doesn't get caught. Nick Saban is keeping his nose clean. He wins with the talent that he has, and he doesn't get caught. If this sounds like a person who is overrated at their job to you, then we don't have the same definition of overrated. He is successfully and accurately fulfilling his job. I mean, you can say that Nick Saban has a more talented roster than everybody else that he plays. This is true. He probably does. But Nick Saban has 5 national titles in the last 9 years, 130-20 in his last 12 seasons. This is rare territory. If Nick Saban wins one more national title, he'll have more than Bear Bryant. He'll have more than everybody else. Like this is not overrated. Even if you have more talent, the gap between what Nick Saban's got on an annual basis is not so large that it was that much more than what Georgia had last year. But was he cheating? It's just to me an example of sour grapes. It's like when you're a kid. I had a PlayStation when I was a kid. My friend got a PS2. I got his PlayStation, right? And I'm a big Nintendo guy. So the PlayStation, Sony, it's a different controller, it's a different setup, and I was bad at all of those games. And you know what every single kid says when they're playing a game and they can't beat the game? You know what every single kid says? Why is the game cheating? And me and my brother, we would be hopping mad. We would be out of our minds mad because the game felt like it was cheating. The game's not cheating. We weren't good enough. Like, if you really want to outdo Nick Saban, be better. He clearly has found a way to cheat, and no one's caught him. He keeps his head down. He keeps his nose clean. He wins with the talent that he has. No one's caught him. Does that not mean anything? That means that you can do it. You, anonymous coach, can also win this way. If you are able to cheat effectively enough, you can develop a roster that's better than everybody else's roster. Like, don't complain about it. Just get better. Like, there's a saying that goes, hey, if you are in an argument, don't raise your voice, change your argument. You can't complain that Nick Saban is cheating in a world where I think a lot of college football programs are cheating, and where you are playing by the same rules that allow Nick Saban to do whatever it is that he is doing. Because I'm not saying that Nick Saban is cheating, to be clear. I have no proof. I have no evidence. And by the way, neither does this anonymous coach. But what I am saying is, if he's cheating, so can you. If Nick Saban is good at cheating, then that's part of the job. That's part of the description. And if he's good at it and you're bad at it, find a mirror, buddy. Look at yourself in the mirror and try and figure out why it is that this man is capable of cheating, never getting caught, never getting into trouble, and somehow you can't. He's playing by the same rules you're playing by. But there is a certain thing called the Pareto distribution. I don't think that this is purely Nick Saban just cheating, right? Like, there's a certain level of this where once you're good, you get to be better than everybody else. Right? This is an absolute fact. When you walk through the airport and you go into the bookstore, who do you see? You see Stephen King everywhere. Why? Because Stephen King is the most popular, most successful writer at the moment. You can't. Stephen King's books are always at eye level and they're all over the place. And then there's some other authors as you go down. And then if you're not big time, if you're not making the big draw, guess what? You're not in the bookstore. You're not in the airport. The more successful you are, the more opportunities you get to be even more successful. Rich people get to invest money. Poor people have to worry about their bills. So they don't have the opportunities to get even more successful. I think this is a large case of that with Nick Saban in Alabama, where he's just been so successful. Like I said, 5 titles in 9 years. He's got a record of 132-20, which is just obscene. He's so successful and so largely talented that he's going to get more opportunities to recruit better players that smaller schools don't get. It's not fair. But it's life. You think other authors wouldn't like to be in the same position as Stephen King? Does Stephen King need to be on more bookshelves? No. He's written 1 million books, and so many of them have been turned into movies and TV shows. I mean, Stephen King doesn't need any more help financially. But he gets it because he's popular. And if you're a bookstore, you don't want to take a chance on somebody new. It's the same thing with a lot of these kids that choose to go to Alabama. You could go and try and make your name at North Texas, but it would be a whole lot easier. And quite frankly, it makes a ton more sense to just go to Alabama, where they're a proven winner. You'll have a chance to win a national title, and you'll probably be drafted by an NFL team if you can make the roster at Alabama. Because if you make the roster at Alabama, you can make it anywhere. Right? Like, that's why you would go there. And that's why Nick Saban gets more opportunities than most other coaches. It's just a fact. It's not his fault. It's not cheating. There may be some cheating involved, but whatever is involved, You can't prove it. So you just cut it with the sour grapes already. Whatever it is that Nick Saban's doing to be successful, find a way to beat that. And they had a poll of who was the most overrated coach in college football. Nick Saban only got one vote. So it's not like a bunch of coaches even agree with this guy, this anonymous coach. Nick Saban only got one vote for most overrated coach in college football, which makes sense because Nick Saban, what he's doing is pretty impressive. Even if he's doing it unfairly, the fact that he never gets into trouble, the fact that he never gets caught, and the fact that Nick Saban, even in years where he doesn't win a national title, doesn't have a disappointing season either. All of these things, if you think that guy's overrated, find a dictionary. You're listening to all new Nougat Radio, NougatRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Clutch with Keon Rose. I want to jump on over to Ohio State and the Zach Smith situation, where Urban Meyer, his fate is going to be decided on Wednesday. That's what the president of the university told the Columbus Dispatch earlier today. And I think that this is just the weirdest story of the offseason. I don't think anyone expected this story to be a truly weird story. It is crazy in that Zach Smith, the former accused of domestic abuse involving his ex-wife, Courtney Smith, and this may or may not have been reported properly by Nick Saban to the university and to the higher-ups. And then at Big Ten Media Days, Brent McMurphy, the former ESPN reporter, asked Nick Saban if he was aware of these allegations. Nick Saban said no. So Nick Saban lied about this, and you have to wonder, what is he lying about if, in fact, he did report Zach Smith in the manner that he was supposed to? And the story there could just stop. That's bad enough. But then more stuff surfaced over the weekend about Zach Smith having sex toys delivered to the university for whatever reason, taking pictures of his junk at the university, and when the team visited the White House after winning the national title game, at the White House. How did we know he was at the White House? He put his junk on the towel so that we all knew. Why? Nobody knows why. And then, of course, he was having relations with a staffer in the offices of Ohio State. She got moved to a different department, but he was kept on board. He was not fired for that. And all of this stuff builds a picture of Ohio State that is not flattering. It builds a picture of a university that is exercising poor judgment. And this is not even like Zach Smith's own poor judgment, but of a university that's exercising poor judgment. They have a lack of credibility because they're clearly looking at these things and going, oh, no, this is fine. This is completely normal behavior. People have sex toys delivered to their office all the time, except that they don't. And you could say, well, you get that stuff delivered to your office because you don't want your wife to know. Okay, fair enough. Set up a P.O. box. Why do you have to have that delivered to your office? Under no circumstances do you need that delivered to your office. But it also points out something else that's very alarming about Ohio State, which is that the university has an ability and a track record of turning a blind eye to a situation that is clearly bizarre. And so when you go back to, did Urban Meyer tell his higher-ups about what Zach Smith did or did not do with his wife, which they have to do because that is a Title IX violation if they do not. If you go back and look at that, and then look at everything else that Zach Smith has done that has not resulted in him being fired, that has not resulted in him being relieved of his job, then you have to look at the situation and go, this guy is getting away with murder, and there's nothing the university finds troubling about this. Zach Smith isn't a different guy now than he was in 2015 when these allegations surfaced, nor was he a different person in 2013 when those allegations surfaced, nor was he a different person in 2009 when those allegations surfaced. And this is the major problem of what's going on with Ohio State, which is that they have a record of putting football in front of what is good for their students, because this guy's a role model. He's supposed to be the one in charge of leading young men, being an example for them. And he's clearly failing at this. And the university keeps this guy on staff year after year after year, even though they had an issue in 2013 and they had an issue in 2015. And Urban Meyer at Florida had an issue with him in 2009. He's the same guy now that he was then. Absolutely nothing's changed. And does the university change? I don't think they do. Putting football in front of morality, putting football in front of absolutely what is the right thing to do. This is something that it's a big deal because they're going to do it again. Wednesday is when they're going to announce what it is that they're doing to Urban Meyer in terms of the punishment for him. And the rumors that have been released are that Urban Meyer is going to be suspended, and he's going to be suspended in all likelihood with time served. He's missed 2 weeks of college football coaching activities already, and he is going to be suspended with that time served so that he doesn't miss too much time coaching football. That's clearly what's important to the university. That's where their priorities lie. It's obvious. And I think this is a problem. This is a gigantic problem because it shows that they've learned nothing in the process of all of this. They haven't learned anything. They're going to continue to put football in front of what is good for the guys on their team. And this is crazy. And I know why, right? Like, because you look at Michigan, you look at Jim Harbaugh. Is Jim Harbaugh best for the University of Michigan? I'll leave that up to Michigan people to decide and to Big Ten guys to decide. But Michigan's got Shea Patterson. He's going to start against Notre Dame. So your biggest rival has found a quality quarterback. Shea Patterson's really good. He was down at Ole Miss. Shea Patterson's real good. They found a quality starter at quarterback. That defense has played well the entire time Harbaugh's been up there. The offense has been rocky, but they've been competitive. You don't want to be without Urban Meyer the year that Michigan starts to tick up. It really looks bad for you. It's not a fun look. I get all that. It does matter quite a bit. But where I find this to be laughable at best is just this idea that just a suspension of Urban Meyer is going to somehow be good enough. It's not going to be. Now, if they have enough rationale after doing their investigation, if they have enough there to say he's definitely going to be suspended and we have a reason to say why, fine. But my bet is that the university doesn't have a whole lot to go on, and they're going to suspend him rather than fire him merely because they don't have much. That's not a good reason. It really isn't. Urban Meyer is one of the best coaches in college football. Like, your motive for doing this is not at all a secret. Urban Meyer is one of the 3 best coaches in college football. Your reasons for trying to find a way to suspend him rather than fire him, rather than lose him, they're obvious here. And if you're Ohio State and you had any guts at all, you'd go ahead and fire the guy for being in a repeat situation of situations that he has seen. Well, this is the 3rd time he's seeing it now. And this time it's worse because he lied about it, which means he knew. This is the problem with him lying. Not that he lied, because he lied to the media. And as much as that's weird that he lied about something he didn't have to lie about, the fact that he lied to the media tells me that he's got something to hide. He knows that this is wrong. He's got a problem. And he still didn't think of it as something he should acknowledge. He thought of it as something that he should cover up. And the cover up is always worse than the crime. We hear this often enough, and we hear it because it's true. It's true. It's 100% true. He's got to go. DJ Durkin in Maryland has got to go too. Talk to you about that in a second, because that situation, I think, is even more sickening. But remember to get your high school football spirits in high gear on Thursday nights with Nuga Radio's Gridiron Gang Show, live from 7 to 9 at Starbucks at 10 North on the North Shore. Then join Sam Jordan on Friday nights with the Countdown to Kickoff, presented by One-on-One Personal Training, beginning at 7 p.m. Later, Myself and Nick LaFew will bring you the excitement of high school football of the high school football game of the week at 7:30. This Friday night, Chattanooga Central visits Red Bank. And then after the game, Sam Jordan will get you up to date with all the scores and highlights from across the region with the fifth quarter show. Sports is Super with Nuga Radio 92.7 FM. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose here on Nuga Radio 92.7.
Traffic, news, and information. Nuga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. 3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Neighbors say Mike McElrath stumbled onto their porch naked and bloody. Deputies report there was blood all over the crime scene. He told them, "Call the police. I've shot my son." Deputies say they found McElrath's 15-year-old son shot multiple times in the chest, lying dead in his room. The family dog strangled in the home. McElrath told them he doesn't know why he did it. A Rossville man was fatally stabbed. Another one was savagely slashed on Rogers Road. Officers say they found Mr. Hankins lying on the ground profusely bleeding. It was too late for him, though. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Another man hospitalized. Saudi Daisy police say somebody drowned at Big Saudi Creek Gulf. Police Captain Jeff Gann told Channel 3 they believe the victim died around 8 p.m. just off of Highway 111. The medical examiner will provide a full autopsy to determine the exact cause of death. Russell Stroud, Nuga Radio News Talk 92.7 Action News now.
Chattanooga Morning News with Russ and Val. Weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. on Nuga Radio 92.7 FM.
Chattanooga weather. Any lingering showers and storms will slowly diminish through your nighttime. Overnight lows 70 to 72. Some patchy late fog. For Tuesday, a few scattered showers will move on to the south and east. Highs 85 to 87 with more sunshine, drier, and pleasant weather for the midweek. For lunch or dinner, come to Guthrie's, home of the original golden fried delicious chicken finger with their special world-famous sauce. Open daily. Locations in Trenton, Signal Mountain, and Ringgold. Go get Guthrie's. It's always good. And I'm Source E12 Chief Meteorologist Matt Report. Nuga Radio 92.7.
I got my business up and running, and it's already expanding. I got lucky. Lucky because I found Signal Voice and Data. Signal Voice and Data can incorporate all of my business information sharing and communications seamlessly, keep my costs down, and let me work more productively with endless connectivity no matter where I might be. That's called working smart, not hard. Go to signalvoicetn.com and bring the future of communication to your business today. signalvoicetn.com.
Hey, dude, check this out. Have you ever seen one so big?
Whoa, look at the size of that.
Look at this little itty-bitty one.
Wow, that's really small.
They have them big, small, and everything in between. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives at the knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. We're talking about over 40 brands of knives, including Benchmade, WR Case & Sons, Booker, and all the Frost Cutlery brands. Now, Sam, you've been to the cutlery shop. Is it amazing?
Spectacular. The knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. They have knives, swords, kitchen knives, ammo, and reloading supplies, plus survival gear.
It's the knife shop at Frost Cutlery. Open 7 days a week. Hey, girls, you're going to love this. We're going to the knife shop.
Hey, let's not tell them they have ammo and loading supplies.
The knife shop at Frost Cutlery opens 7 days a week. You'll always find the biggest variety of knives. You're going to love the knife shop at Frost Cutlery in Ottawa. The knife shop.
And tell them David Toulis sent you.
Join Nuga Radio and the Gridiron Gang live from 7 to 9 at Starbucks at 10 North on the North Shore. We're talking all things high school football. There's a specialty brew or refresher weekly inspired by the game of the week. Sweet treats, extended hours all season long, and we're pet friendly. Portions of all proceeds support local schools and educational scholarships, as well as after-school programs. It's football time in Tennessee. Join us every Thursday live from 7 to 9 at Starbucks, 10 North, your North Shore neighborhood living room.
You want more business. You want to increase your bottom line. You want to spend less on advertising, imaging your business, and general expenses. You need Trade Bank. When you join Trade Bank, you'll get the benefit of free advertising in our monthly magazine, tradebank.com, emails, and mailouts. Join Trade Bank now and receive your Trade Bank debit card. with trade credits to spend any way you want. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call now for a free consultation. 877-2202. That's 877-2202. Trade Bank of Chattanooga.
Chattanooga Paint and Decorating would like to remind you it's so hot out there. And guess what? Your deck is taking a beating. It's probably starting to show wear. If you're hosting friends, get your deck entertainment ready with a fresh coat of stain and protect it from heat, sun, and rain with a quality sealant. If you want to get to work, Chattanooga Paint and Decorating want to help you. For exterior paint, stains, sealants, and supplies, stop by Chattanooga Paint and Decorating today on Hicks and Pike across from Valvoline or online at ChattanoogaPaint.com.
Nuga Radio. Are you brain dead? Still voting for pathetic liberals? Take 3 hours of Sean Hannity from 3 to 6.
Nuga Radio.
Then call us in the morning between 9 and 11.
92.7
Nuga Radio.
Guys, what is Dan Mullen doing? I have to ask a serious question because Butch Jones made me ask this question all the time. First off, I was on the Butch Jones bandwagon very early, and I got off it very late. So I feel really bad about this. I do. But Butch Jones, as a coach, reached very high meme levels, which is to say, everything that came out of his mouth at some point was going to be a joke. But Butch Jones managed to coach an entire season of college football before we started doing this to him. Dan Mullen has not even started, and we're already doing this to him. Dan Mullen is, or well, maybe Dan Mullen is doing this to himself. Dan Mullen was talking about the quarterbacks at the scrimmage that they had this weekend because he hasn't yet figured out which one of these guys he really wants to start, which makes sense. It's a difficult decision. All of them look terrible. But the thing with Dan Mullen is that Dan Mullen was talking about how he was grading his quarterbacks. What is the grade that you'd give the quarterbacks? And I'm going to look at this quote here so that I can read this quote directly as Dan Mullen said it so that you cannot say that I put words in Dan Mullen's mouth. He said, and I quote, "They graded as champions. They had not previously graded as champions." What does that mean, Dan Mullen? What does that actually mean? How can your quarterbacks, all three of them, who have never, ever won a championship, grade as champions? That is so close to Butch Jones and his champions of life quote, it actually hurts. It really does. How can your quarterbacks grade as champions? And all of them, every single one, you'd start any of them and you'd be fine. Because I wouldn't. Right? I wouldn't start any of those guys. I mean, Felipe Franks is maybe the closest guy to a guy that they have that you would start. And certainly, if I had a championship game and I could choose any quarterback, Felipe Franks doesn't make the top 100. What are you talking about? Is he out of his mind? None of these guys grade as champions. Not in this universe or any other one. And I feel like Dan Mullen is just saying stuff just to say stuff. And my question here is, because I've liked Dan Mullen for a really long time, I thought at Mississippi State, he was incredible. He did a really good job of taking guys, 3 stars, 4 stars, and having them play above their talent level. His 4 stars looked like 5 stars. His 3 stars looked like 4 stars. He had those guys punching above their weight class. And that was incredible to me. So I've been a big fan of Dan Mullen. But was Dan Mullen always saying stuff like this? Or did we just not notice because he was at Mississippi State? Because I think there's a certain level of you're coaching in Starksville, and we just didn't hear you saying ridiculousness at a machine gun rate. He's saying things that I've never heard a head coach say before. What do you mean your 3 quarterbacks graded as champions? Or when they asked Dan Mullen to explain his gun policy after one of his players got caught with a gun, and his response could pretty much be summarized as, I don't have a gun policy. Like, you don't know what it is that Dan Mullen is doing right now. And I don't know if he's just on the spotlight, and that's where we've just come to realize, like, okay, Dan Mullen is not really great at talking to the media. Like he might be a good coach still. I'll give him that because I still think that he's really good at coaching players up, though he hasn't really shown his chops as a recruiter. I don't want to come down as a judge on that in year one, though I do think we blamed a lot of his lack of ability to recruit at Mississippi State with the fact that he was at Mississippi State. Like, that's just a hard place to recruit to. What are you going to tell kids they're going to do on the weekend? Yeah, come to Starkville and like, what are you going to tell them? Like, there's nothing really to tell them to get people fired up about if you can't get them fired up about the program. But he's always been such a good coach. Gainesville's not a big town either, but Florida's got such a solid reputation as a school that you go, okay, I want to go there. I want to play there. I want to be part of the history that this school has. You don't have that at Mississippi State. So with Dan Mullen being on this stage, was he just always saying stuff and we just didn't notice? It's like, it's like dating somebody, right? Like you're dating them, and then early on in the relationship, there's just a lot of stuff that maybe you sweep under the rug, or maybe you just don't notice. And then over time, just all of the stuff comes out. Just if there's craziness in there, it's in there. Now it's all coming out, right? Like, this is what I feel with Dan Mullen. Where there was a guy, he was in a small town. We didn't know that much about him. You could like him. You could root for him. And now he's at Florida, and things obviously have to be different. You're at Florida. It's not the same. And Dan Mullen he must be saying the same things that he was always saying, and we just didn't care. Because there's zero explanation for what that is. That's hilarious, especially if you get into the season and coaches say this stuff, and it backfires horribly because coaches say this stuff so that people in the media will think they're boring and won't focus too much on any one thing that they say. And the reason why this stuff backfires so hard is if you say all of your quarterbacks grade as champions, then if they go out there and they play like butt, guess what? That quote is going to haunt you for the rest of your life. Like, the University of Tennessee had an opportunity at the end of the Butch Jones era to be SEC East champions. They choked away the last 2 games of the season, and people were asking Butch Jones, are you concerned about the fact that you had a chance to be SEC East champion, and in fact, you are not? And he said, well, it's about being the champions of life. It's about training guys to be champions of life. And that is a stupid quote for the obvious reason of you can be a champion of life and an SEC East champ at the same time. These are things that you can have all at once. And this does not excuse the fact that you somehow failed to be an SEC East champ. The fact that your quarterbacks don't look like capable starters means you don't get to stand there and say, if you're Dan Mullen, they're champs. That's how I grade them. That's the grade. On a grade of F- to A+, I give them champion. That doesn't mean anything. It's a nothing quote, but it's a nothing quote that's going to come back on you so hard. It's going to be hilarious. Dan Mullen has reached meme levels higher than we've ever seen, and he hasn't coached a single game of college football yet. That is the part of this that is surprising. Butch Jones said stupid stuff all the time, but we didn't notice until at least he started losing. Dan Mullen hasn't done anything. He hasn't done anything, and we've already noticed how absolutely bonkers some of the stuff he says is. When you have a guy who's on your team and he gets caught with a gun and the media asks you about your gun policy, we would hope that you would say our gun policy is for players on a college campus, no guns. That really should be your gun policy. And somehow he's got himself in this situation where I don't know what it is. I don't know what the deal is, but he's got to stop. Somebody has to stop Dan Mullen. He really does. We really do. It's crazy. It is beyond. It's unconscionable is what it is. He's just at this point flapping his gums in front of a microphone, and he must be stopped. He must 100% be stopped. You're listening to All New Nougat Radio, NougatRadio.com, here on 92.7 FM. Get your high school football spirits in high gear on Thursday nights with Nougat Radio's Gridiron Gang Show, live from 7 to 9 p.m. at Starbucks at 10 North on the North Shore. Then join Sam Jordan on Friday nights with the Countdown to Kickoff presented by One-on-One Personal Training beginning at 7 p.m. Later, myself and Nick LeFew bring you all the excitement of the high school football game of the week at 7:30. This Friday night, Chattanooga Central visits Red Bank. After the game, Sam Jordan gets you up to date with all the scores and highlights from across the region with the fifth quarter show. Sports is super with Nougat Radio 92.7 FM. So that's going to be fun. Me and Nick look forward to doing the Gridiron Gang Show. We're going to try and recap everything that happened last week, as well as look forward to what will be happening this upcoming Friday in the region and in the area. We're going to give you player breakdowns. We're going to try and get some of the coaches in there and talk to them about what's going to be happening that upcoming Friday. And really, we're just trying to have a lot of fun. This is football, you guys. I mean, we could make this incredibly serious, but the goal of this really is to not be stressed out. The goal of this is to have as much fun as humanly possible. Speaking of a person who is having as much fun as humanly possible, but I'm glad they're having slightly less fun, Mike Gundy, the head coach of Oklahoma State, has shaved his mullet. The mullet is gone. The mullet is dead, finally. Mike Gundy has finally killed the mullet. And I say thank goodness. Thank goodness Mike Gundy has killed the mullet and joined the rest of us in the 21st century. The mullet forever being the hairstyle of teenagers in the 1980s and truckers in Alabama. This is the mullet. This is the mullet. I'm glad the mullet is gone. The mullet should have died ages ago, and it seemed like the only person keeping the mullet alive was Dan Mullen. Check that, Mike Gundy. Talk about Dan Mullen so much I got Mullen on the brain. Mike Gundy had the mullet forever. And I'm glad it's gone. His reason for having the mullet, by the way, was, well, the kids like the mullet. Do they, Mike? Do they really? Do the kids really like the mullet? Think about this. Think about this honestly. Do they actually like the mullet? I don't think they do. I really don't think they do. I think the kids like laughing at the mullet. You see, Mike Gundy made the very, very interesting mistake, and it's a mistake that we can all make, of thinking that laughing at him was the same as laughing with him. Because if I saw a grown man with a mullet, would I attend a university for 4 years for the sole purpose of laughing at that man and his mullet? You better believe it. Yes, I would. I would 100% do that. Because that's what should happen to you if you have a mullet. Someone should relentlessly mock you for the next 4 years. How it is that Dan Mullen didn't realize that the joke wasn't with him, but the joke was against him until recently is incredibly beyond me, but I'm glad he finally got there. Mike Gundy is a guy that once yelled at the media, "Come after me, I'm a man, I'm 40, and then proceeded to rock a mullet. He told us he was 40 years old, and he decided that the hairstyle he should go with anyway was a mullet. And by the way, Mike Gundy told us he was 40 10 years ago. What is a 50-year-old man doing with a mullet? Honestly. Can you imagine Sam Jordan with a mullet? Even Sam can't imagine Sam with a mullet. Come on. Like, you're in your 50s. There's just things that as you get older, you've got to let go. I'm not going to tell you what it is to let go. Like, there's a certain level of, like, if you're, look, I'm 28 years old. I like cartoons. I still watch cartoons. I think they're fun. I think they're great. When will I let go of cartoons? I have no idea. But you know what? At 50 years old, it should be obvious. It should be obvious. You have no business with a mullet on your head. None. There was no business having a mullet at 40. There was no business having a mullet at 30. You're grown. There are just certain things you can't take with you. A mullet ought to be one. And it should be obvious. There's certain things you got to let go of, but it's not obvious you should let go of. Like, at what age do you stop wearing a jersey? This is a question that it's heatedly debated. When do you let go of wearing the jersey? Because some people do find it hard to wear something with another grown man's name on their back. I get that. At what age do you let go of a jersey? I don't know. That's a tough one. Because I still wear jerseys. I'm 28. Will I be wearing a jersey 10 years from now? Maybe. I can't tell you if that's true or not, but maybe. It's hard to figure out when. But a mullet, that's obvious. It's obvious that if you're 50 and you still have a mullet, you've got problems. You've got serious problems. Mike Gundy, a man with serious problems, but not anymore because he got rid of it. And good riddance. And keep it off. That was not as entertaining as you thought that it was. You're listening to All New Nuga Radio and NugaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. DJ Durkin, the head coach of Maryland, though he is being suspended, and Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator, is going to serve as interim head coach while he is being investigated. DJ Durkin, he should be fired. He should be fired because there was a player in Maryland. His name is Jordan McNair. He's 19 years old, and he died. He died of a heat stroke. And the heat stroke, as the coroner's report says, is obvious. And this is hugely problematic because here's a university that has a coach pushing his players too hard. Him and the strength and conditioning coach pushing the players too hard, not hydrating them. And now there's a kid who's dead. And look, the university's owned up to it. They've apologized for it. So that's something. Because, I mean, we've seen the denial situation before, but at least the university's owned up to it. And they're trying to memorialize Jordan McNair. But I think that rather than memorializing Jordan McNair's parents would like their son back. And they can't have him back. But here's a guy who completely perpetuated a system of pretty much player abuse. Because if you have guys who are dying of heat stroke, that is abuse. That is abuse of your power as a head coach. And the only reason why you would fail to hydrate someone to the point of a heat stroke would be to display your power over that person. And we see this happen over and over and over again in college football. This story continuously told and repeated. That is the only reason why you would have that problem. And it's sad. And DJ Durkin, who may be a good coach. He may not be a good coach. I'm not going to lie. I don't spend any time watching Maryland football. But DJ Durkin needs to be fired. I read a story today that the players want their coach back. They like him. Which is kind of cool that the players like their coach and they've connected with him and they'd like him to be there for him and be there for him. And that means a lot. It does. But at the end of the day, they're the players. They don't make that decision. And the fact of the matter is, he's connected with the players on this level. And if this is the kind of program he's going to run, that's the last guy I want connecting with players. That's the last guy that I want players thinking to themselves, this person is a good person. Because maybe DJ Durkin's a good person in other areas of his life. But when it comes to running a program to where a young man is dying, and look, football, we're coming wise to the dangers of football and what football can do in terms of damage to the brain. But you know what we've known about forever? Hydration. We've moved past the caveman days of football where you just run kids out in the sun until they collapse to prove a point. We don't do that anymore. Like this is out of date in 2018, but it was out of date in 2000. It was out of date in 1992. We don't do this. And for DJ Durkin to have this be the way to lose a kid, because kids have died playing football this year. And we're still trying to figure out all the head trauma stuff. But to have a kid die this way, in a death that ultimately was 100% preventable. It's insane that guy still has a job and that the university is even somehow considering this guy still having a job when, you've got the district attorney looking at this and going, like, this is toxic. They've already removed the strength and conditioning coach, so something's up. And you can't tell me that Durkin didn't know. He had to have known. That's how this thing works. You're the head coach, and all the other coaches report to you. If somehow one of your players is not drinking enough water out in the hot sun at practice, or you ought to know. You shouldn't have a kid die of heat stroke in 2018. The science is pretty well established on hydration at this point. It's completely preventable. Drink water, you don't die of heat stroke. You can't deny somebody drinking water if they're thirsty. You can't use not being hydrated as a punishment. Okay? We're not cavemen. Football's a pretty violent game. It can be brutal. But we're not cavemen. This is 2018, and that's entirely unacceptable, and that guy should lose his job. You're listening to All New Nuga Radio, NugaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM, plus with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today, making me just a small part of your day. You know that I appreciate you. Remember, folks, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch, and I'll see you in 24 hours.